Chapter 1. Professor from Hell. The lecture hall at Eastbourne University was so silent you could hear pens scratching on paper and the faint hum of the projector. Students barely dared to breathe because standing at the front was Professor Adrian Vale, the man students whispered about as if he were Voldemort's cousin, brilliant, cold, terrifying, and impossibly good-looking in a way that only made him more untouchable. His suit was perfectly tailored, his tie a shade too expensive for academia. He adjusted his glasses with the kind of clinical precision that made everyone's stomach tighten with dread. Section B, Adrian's voice was like ice, low but sharp. Your calculations are wrong. If you can't divide a simple genome sequence ratio, I don't know what you're doing in my class. Redo it, by tonight. The unfortunate student he addressed visibly shrank into his seat. The rest of the class scribbled notes furiously, as though writing fast enough would protect them from sudden death. At the very back, Ethan Cross, a final-year alpha, leaned back in his chair, twirling his pen between his fingers with a look of deep, exaggerated boredom. His dark hair fell over his forehead, and his lips twisted into a smirk that screamed troublemaker. Beside him, his best friend Noah whispered, "You're going to get murdered one of these days, I swear." "I'll haunt him," Ethan whispered back. "Bet his mansion's haunted-proof. Rich people have anti-ghost tech." Noah nearly choked on his laugh, drawing a sharp glare from Adrian that made him straighten in terror. "Ethan?" He grinned. The pairing. When the lecture ended, Adrian snapped his folder shut. "Cross, stay behind." Groans erupted from students who secretly hoped for drama. Noah gave Ethan a sympathetic look and whispered, "Funeral at 6. "Bring flowers," Ethan replied, before slinging his bag over his shoulder and sauntering down to the front. Adrian was scribbling something onto a sheet when Ethan stopped in front of his desk. The professor didn't look up immediately. When he finally did, his gaze locked on Ethan's like steel bars snapping shut. "You," Adrian said, his tone colder than liquid nitrogen. "You've been assigned to me for the Vale Biotech Research Collaboration." Ethan blinked. "Wait, what?" "You heard me. Out of all the seniors, you've been selected as my assistant for the confidential genetics project." Ethan's jaw dropped. "Who the hell decided that? Some sick lottery? Did I step on karma's tail?" "Your grades," Adrian replied flatly, ignoring Ethan's dramatics. "You're irritating but talented. Do not confuse one for the other." "Wow, thanks. I love compliments served with knives." For the first time, Adrian's lips curved. Not into kindness, but into something sharper, like amusement. The smirk of a predator who found an amusing prey. The first clash. Their first lab session was a disaster. Adrian moved with calm efficiency, explaining procedures like commands issued in battle. Ethan, however, was far too sarcastic for his own good. "Adjust the centrifuge to 3,000 RPM, Adrian instructed. "Yes, your majesty of arrogance," Ethan muttered as he fiddled with the machine. Adrian stilled, his head tilted slightly, eyes narrowing, before a dangerous smirk spread across his lips. "Your majesty of arrogance?" Ethan shrugged. "Well, you order people around like a king and glare like one. Don't deny it." Instead of anger, Adrian leaned closer, his voice low enough to curl along Ethan's spine. "And yet, you still kneel to me in the lab." Ethan's ears burned. "Who's kneeling?" He nearly dropped the pipette, glaring at Adrian as if sheer stubbornness would erase his flustered blush. Noah, watching from across the lab as a volunteer helper, whispered under his breath, "God, just kiss already." Enter the rival. During a break, Ethan headed to the cafeteria, only to be intercepted by Marcus Lynn, the golden boy of the genetics department. Polished, smug, and always annoyingly well-prepared, Marcus leaned against the doorway with a smirk. Well, Vale's new lapdog," Marcus drawled. Ethan froze. "Excuse me?" "You must be thrilled, Cross. Professor Vale doesn't pick just anyone. But let's be real. You're only there because he needed someone disposable." Ethan's eye twitched. "I'm sorry, are you auditioning for the role of biggest asshole alive? Because you're nailing it." Marcus sneered. "You'll just embarrass yourself. Vale will chew you up and spit you out." Before Ethan could retort, Adrian appeared behind Marcus like a shadow. His voice was smooth but lethal. "Mr. Lin, do you have time to loiter, or should I assign you more coursework?" Marcus stiffened, paling. Adrian's gaze slid to Ethan, softening ever so slightly in comparison, before flicking back to Marcus with a warning sharp enough to slice steel. Marcus muttered something and scurried off. Ethan raised a brow. "You always sneak up on people like a horror movie villain?" Adrian adjusted his cufflinks, unbothered. "Only when it's entertaining." Vale Biotech glimpse. Later that evening, Ethan caught sight of Adrian in his other world, the corporate titan of Vale Biotech. He wore the same tailored perfection, but his aura shifted. Colder, sharper, commanding an entire boardroom full of executives who listened like soldiers at attention. Ethan had only come to deliver some updated research notes but froze when he saw Adrian smile faintly at his arrival. It was subtle, quick, but enough for the board to glance between their fearsome CEO and the young alpha with shock. The rumor mill was going to explode. Tension builds. That night in the empty lab, Ethan worked late to fix an error. Adrian appeared silently, setting a coffee beside him. "You're reckless," Adrian murmured, his voice unusually low. "You overwork yourself without caution." Ethan blinked, startled at the almost protective tone. Thanks, Dad?" Adrian gave him a look that promised retaliation. Ethan smirked anyway. But as Adrian's hand lingered near his, Ethan noticed it. The professor was cold to everyone else, but different, strangely, obsessively protective with him. And that thought sent an uneasy thrill crawling down Ethan's spine. Chapter 2. Lab Accident. The clock struck midnight in the sprawling mansion of Professor Adrian Vale. Most professors locked their offices and went home at 5. Adrian? He led Ethan down polished marble stairs into a private underground lab beneath his estate, something straight out of a billionaire's science fiction movie. Rows of pristine equipment hummed quietly. Walls of glass gleamed under the sterile lights. Unlike the university labs, this place was personal, secret, and terrifyingly expensive. Ethan whistled low. "Wow, okay, so this is where you hide the murder weapons." Adrian shot him a glance as sharp as a scalpel. "This is where breakthroughs are made, not murder weapons." "Uh-huh, sure. If I go missing, Noah's getting a map to this exact spot." Adrian didn't answer. He was too busy watching Ethan smirk as though the alpha's sarcasm itself was magnetic. How Adrian fell. Adrian had known about Ethan Cross long before the project, long before the lab accident. Most students were dull. They obeyed, scribbled notes, flinched when corrected. Ethan? Ethan argued. He mocked. He refused to kneel. The first time Ethan rolled his eyes in his lecture, Adrian felt something snap. A spark. Irritation, yes, but also fascination. An alpha who wasn't afraid of him. An alpha who talked back with a grin that made Adrian's chest ache. Of course, he'd hidden it. No one knew, not even Noah, who seemed to know everything about Ethan. But Adrian had already chosen. Long before the university paired them for the research, Ethan was already his. The accident. Hours into the experiment, fatigue made Ethan sloppy. He reached for a vial too quickly, knocking another off balance. A clear chemical spilled across the bench, hissing faintly as it reacted with the air. Shit! Ethan grabbed cloths, trying to clean, but the vapor had already spread. It mixed with his natural alpha pheromones, amplifying them until the air thickened with heady, intoxicating scent. Adrian froze. His entire body trembled, instincts clawing out of the cold mask he usually wore. The scent was overwhelming, raw alpha dominance laced with Ethan's unique signature. Before Ethan could react, Adrian slammed a hand against the table beside him, trapping him in place. His voice was rough, breaking past years of restraint. "You don't understand." Adrian's eyes darkened, pupils dilated. "You're mine." Ethan's breath caught. "Vale, you're... what the hell?" But Adrian was already leaning in, fangs bared. Not literal vampire fangs, but the Enigma's instinctual urge to mark. His lips pressed against Ethan's neck, teeth grazing over the sensitive gland. And then Adrian bit. Ethan gasped, body arching as Adrian's scent flooded the room, mingling with his own. It wasn't just a mark, it was a claim, raw and irreversible. The world spun, their lips crashed together, and in the haze of pheromones and instinct, Ethan's sarcastic protests burned into moans and curses. The Enigma's claim on his beloved Alpha. Adrian didn't stop at the mark. His instincts were too strong, his obsession finally breaking its chains. Sweeping Ethan up into his arms as if he weighed nothing, Adrian carried him out of the lab and up into the mansion's private wing. Ethan thrashed weakly, half panicked, half dazed. "Put me down. What do you think you're—" Adrian pressed a kiss to his temple, voice husky, fevered. "Completing what's already ours." The bedroom door slammed shut behind them. Ethan's sharp tongue tried to hold on. "You're insane. I'm not. This doesn't mean—" But the words dissolved as Adrian's mouth claimed his again, fierce and desperate. The professor, usually cold and in control, was gone, replaced by a man consumed by instinct and love. Hands tugged, clothes scattered, pheromones heavy in the air until Ethan's sarcasm turned into gasps. For every time Ethan hissed, "I hate you," Adrian answered with trembling devotion, "I love you. I've always loved you." The night burned with a clash of wills and want, Ethan's stubbornness colliding with Adrian's obsession until their bond sealed in every sense, marked, claimed, consummated. By the time dawn broke through the curtains, Ethan lay tangled in silk sheets, glaring half-heartedly at Adrian, who held him far too tenderly for someone who had just overpowered him. "You're a psycho," Ethan muttered. Adrian kissed his hair. "And you're mine?" Ethan groaned, hiding his face in Adrian's chest. "God help me." Aftermath, obsession unveiled. When it was over, Ethan sat at the edge of the bed, glaring at Adrian like a storm ready to strike. "You absolute bastard," Ethan spat, shoving at him weakly. "Who gave you the right to just do that?" Adrian smirked, utterly unrepentant, brushing Ethan's messy hair back. "Your body did. You responded to me. You wanted it. I wanted sleep, not a deranged professor marking and Ethan's voice cracked with embarrassment. "Doing that. Now you're mine," Adrian murmured, voice low and possessive. "And everyone will know it." Ethan shoved him again. "Like hell they will. I'm not telling anyone." "You will." "Nope." "Yes." "Go to hell." Adrian leaned down until their noses brushed. "If you go, I'll follow." Ethan groaned in frustration. Why did I get stuck with a billionaire professor stalker as my mate? Puppy top menace bottom. Adrian began his campaign immediately. The next morning, Ethan stumbled out of the mansion, hair a mess, trying to look like nothing had happened. Adrian was already at the car holding out coffee. "I don't drink bribery," Ethan muttered. "It's caramel macchiato with extra foam," Adrian replied smoothly. "The way you ordered at the campus cafe." Ethan froze. "Are you spying on me?" Adrian smirked. "Observing, with love." "Creepy, you're creepy." Ethan snatched the cup anyway. Later, Adrian accidentally brushed Ethan's hand while passing him papers, or insisted on driving him home despite Ethan's loud protests. No one noticed immediately. "Ethan, why is Vale holding your bag like a bodyguard?" Ethan, "Because he's insane." Adrian, "Because I care." Noah, "Professor Vale, did you just smile?" The entire cafeteria froze. Vale, smiling, with dimples, at his phone. Rumors spread like wildfire. Corporate comedy. At Vale Biotech HQ, executives nearly fainted when Adrian entered a board meeting with an uncharacteristically soft expression. He typed something under the table, lips twitching upward. Elena Gray, his right hand, narrowed her eyes. "Sir, are you texting during a merger discussion?" Adrian didn't look up. "It's important." "More important than a $3 billion deal?" "Yes." The board exchanged horrified looks. No one dared to ask what could possibly be more important than billions. Only Adrian knew. Ethan had just texted, Your Majesty of Arrogance, pick up groceries on the way back. Don't forget eggs, you useless rich man. And Adrian? He was smiling like he'd won the lottery. The reluctant alpha. Despite Adrian's advances, Ethan resisted fiercely. I told you. Ethan snapped one night in the lab when Adrian cornered him again. I don't do relationships, I break things, I mess people up. You don't want me. Adrian's eyes softened in a way that was almost painful. You think I don't know who you are? Ethan Cross, menace of the genetics department? I fell for you because of that fire. Ethan faltered, sarcasm failing him for once. You're insane. Adrian leaned close, voice whisper soft. Then let me be insane, but only for you. Chapter 3. Rivals and Traps. The lab was chaos. Vials shattered, samples ruined, data scrambled. Ethan crouched on the floor, swearing under his breath as he picked up fragments of broken glass. Unbelievable, he muttered. 3 weeks of late nights and caffeine-fueled suffering. Gone. Adrian stood motionless, his jaw tense, his dark eyes scanning the damage. His voice was icy enough to make the room drop a few degrees. This wasn't an accident. Ethan looked up. What are you talking about? Who would even… The door opened, and Marcus Halloway, smug grin firmly in place, leaned against the frame. Tough luck, Cross. Guess not everyone can keep up in Vale's lab. Ethan stiffened. You bastard! Adrian moved faster than Ethan thought possible. In 2 long strides, he grabbed Marcus by the collar, slamming him into the wall. His voice was velvet over steel, dripping with threat. If you ever touch what's mine again, Adrian hissed, his breath hot against Marcus's ear, I'll make sure you never set foot in this university or in this city. Marcus paled, all his cockiness draining away. He sputtered something unintelligible and stumbled out when Adrian finally released him. Ethan, wide-eyed, crossed his arms. Are you insane? You can't just threaten people like that. Adrian turned, still trembling with fury. But when his eyes fell on Ethan, the storm melted. His expression softened instantly, like flipping a switch. He tried to sabotage you. He deserves worse. Ethan scowled. I can fight my own battles. I know, Adrian said quietly, but I can't stand the thought of anyone hurting you. Ethan faltered, his sarcasm caught on the edge of something else. His chest tightened at the sight. Vale, the terrifying professor, melting into something almost puppy-like. He shook his head quickly. You're unhinged. And yours, Adrian replied, without missing a beat. Puppy to him, monster to others. Back on campus, everyone whispered about how Professor Vale was even colder than usual. Rumors spread about him tearing into a rival student until Marcus nearly cried. But Ethan saw another side. At home, yes, home, because somehow Adrian had convinced him to stay at the mansion for safety reasons. Adrian was a different man. When Ethan's old laptop finally gave out during a late-night work session, Ethan groaned and shoved it aside. Great, just great. Add dead laptop to my tragic list of life problems. The next morning, a sleek brand-new model gleamed on the desk. Top of the line, custom-built. Ethan stared. What the hell is this? Your replacement, Adrian said casually, sipping his coffee. I can't accept this, Ethan snapped, pushing it away. Adrian didn't blink. You already did. The hell I did. It's password protected with your birthday. Ethan froze, pointing accusingly. You stalker? Adrian's lips curved in the faintest smile. I pay attention. Emergency contact. Ethan discovered the depth of Adrian's obsession by accident. His phone had died, so Adrian, reluctantly, handed his over. Scrolling to find his own number, Ethan stopped dead. Next to his name in bold letters. Primary contact, emergency only. Ethan blinked. Why am I your emergency contact? Adrian didn't even look up from his files. Because if anything ever happens to me, you're the only one who matters. Ethan's face burned. That's not how this works. You can't just… Already did, Adrian said smoothly. You're insane. Obsessed, Adrian corrected. With you. Ethan groaned, burying his face in his hands. I hate you. Adrian smirked faintly, leaning down to brush a kiss over his hair. You're mine. Corporate comedy. At Vale Biotech, whispers ran wild. The terrifying CEO who never smiled, never entertained distractions, was now seen checking his phone constantly. Sometimes he left meetings abruptly, only to return with coffee cups that suspiciously matched Ethan's ridiculous sugary preferences. Sir, we're discussing million-dollar patents, one executive said, exasperated. Adrian glanced up, his phone lighting with Ethan's sarcastic text. Your Majesty of Arrogance, pick up instant noodles on your way back, and don't get the fancy ones, you useless billionaire. Adrian's lips curved into a rare, dangerous smile. Postpone the meeting, he ordered, standing. I have more important matters. The entire board sat in stunned silence. Reluctant live-in. Ethan swore up and down he would never live in Adrian's mansion. Absolutely not. I'd rather camp in a dumpster, Ethan declared. 2 weeks later, his toothbrush was in Adrian's marble bathroom. His clothes hung neatly in a spare closet. His laptop, the fancy new one, sat on a desk with a customized chair, perfectly adjusted for your posture, Adrian claimed. When Noah came over, he raised a brow. So, Ethan, remind me again how this isn't you living with him? Ethan threw a cushion at his head. Shut up! Adrian, entering the room with a tray of coffee and pastries, looked pleased. He lives here. Ethan scowled. Stop saying that. Stop denying it. Dual nature. Over the next weeks, Ethan couldn't ignore it anymore. To the world, Adrian Vale was ruthless, cold, terrifying. But to Ethan, he was soft smiles over coffee. He was a steady hand when Ethan fell asleep over his notes. He was protective growls when rivals tried to mock him. He was obsessed, yes, but his obsession was laced with something Ethan didn't want to name. Because if he admitted it, it might mean admitting that part of him didn't hate it. That part of him, in fact, might even be falling. Chapter 4. Bonded in Chaos. The Vale Biotech headquarters gleamed with polished glass and steel, the kind of place where dreams were made, or crushed. Tonight it was packed with journalists, corporate partners, and academics, all gathered for the unveiling of the latest breakthrough, the research Ethan and Adrian had worked on for months. Ethan, in a borrowed designer suit Adrian had personally picked out, tugged at his tie. This thing is trying to strangle me, he muttered. You look perfect, Adrian said smoothly, adjusting the knot. His fingers brushed Ethan's throat just a second too long, making the alpha flinch. Hands off, Professor Vale, Ethan snapped, cheeks burning. We're in public. Adrian's lips curved. All the better. Let them know you're mine. Ethan glared, but his heart betrayed him with a quick stutter. The humiliation attempt. When it was time for Q&A, Marcus pounced. His smirk was sharp enough to cut glass. So, Professor Vale, Marcus drawled into the mic, I can't help but wonder, why let a reckless student like Ethan Cross on such a prestigious project? Surely he was just a pretty face to sit beside you while you did the real work. The room went still. Ethan froze, throat dry. Before he could fire back, Adrian stood, his presence filling the hall like a thunderstorm. His gaze locked on Marcus, voice dropping into that lethal calm that made grown men tremble. Insult him, Adrian said, the words slicing through the silence. And you insult me. Every success you see here is ours. His brilliance is the reason we are standing here tonight. The crowd gasped. Cameras flashed. Ethan blinked wide-eyed as Adrian placed a possessive hand on his shoulder. Adrian smiled then, cold, sharp, victorious. And for the record, I don't share what's mine. The fight. Later, in Adrian's penthouse, Ethan exploded. You humiliated me, he shouted, throwing his tie on the couch. You stood there and acted like you own me, like I'm some trophy. Adrian's eyes darkened. You are not a trophy. You're everything. Ethan's fists clenched. You're manipulative, Vale. You twist everything. Yes, Adrian interrupted, because I love you. Because from the first moment I saw you, I knew you were the only alpha strong enough to stand beside me. And you drive me insane every day, but I'd rather go mad with you than live without you. Ethan froze, his breath caught. He wanted to argue, to throw sarcasm, but his chest ached too much. Ethan's voice cracked. You're insane. Adrian stepped forward, backing him into the wall. His forehead rested against Ethan's, voice raw. I'm yours, whether you want me or not. The air thickened with pheromones, electric and overwhelming. Ethan's instincts screamed to resist, but when Adrian's lips captured his, everything shattered. It was fire and storm, rough, desperate, but threaded with something Ethan couldn't ignore: devotion. When Adrian's teeth grazed his scent gland and sank in, Ethan gasped, clutching onto him. You're mine, Adrian whispered, voice breaking as he marked him again. And I'm yours. Ethan's sarcasm died in his throat. His hands fisted in Adrian's shirt as the bond surged, consuming him. And in that moment, with his walls crumbling, Ethan realized something terrifying. Somewhere along the way, he had fallen too. 2 months later, chaos. Ethan sat in the bathroom, pale as he stared at the test strip. Positive. You've got to be kidding me, he muttered. From the other side of the door, Adrian's voice, Ethan, you've been in there for 15 minutes, are you? The door swung open. Adrian froze at the sight of Ethan holding the strip. Pregnant? Adrian breathed. His eyes widened and then suddenly his expression softened with pure joy. Oh no, Ethan said, immediately backing up. Don't you dare. Adrian swept him up into his arms, spinning him around like the happiest man alive. You're carrying our heir. Ethan smacked his shoulder. Put me down, you idiot. This is not good. At the university, gossip exploded. Did you hear? Cross is pregnant with Professor Vale's baby. At the company, executives nearly fainted when Adrian announced it during a board meeting. The future of Vale Biotech is already secured, in the form of my alpha spouse and our child. Ethan nearly threw a stapler at him for that one. The proposal. Chaos. That night, Adrian declared, We're getting married. Ethan, clutching a pillow, glared. Excuse me? You don't just decide that. You're pregnant with my child. So? That doesn't mean I'll marry you just because you ordered it, Your Majesty of Arrogance. Adrian tilted his head. Then what will convince you? Ethan smirked. Propose to me, properly, in front of the entire university. No, scratch that. In front of the whole world. On your knees, Vale. Adrian's lips curved into a dangerous grin. Gladly. Luxurious daily life. From then on, life was chaos wrapped in luxury. Ethan swore he hated being spoiled, but Adrian made sure his fridge was always stocked with his weird pregnancy cravings. One night, it was instant noodles with gold flakes. The next, strawberry milk imported from France. At the university, Adrian showed up between lectures to carry Ethan's bag. Students whispered, Professor Vale, carrying his mate's books? At Vale Biotech, the CEO would storm out of tense meetings because Ethan texted, Come home right now, baby wants pizza. Adrian went, every time. Ethan rolled his eyes daily, but every night when Adrian wrapped him up in bed like the most precious treasure in the world, he let himself relax, just a little. Because maybe being loved this obsessively wasn't so bad. Chapter 5. Marriage, Mayhem, Happy Ending, University, Chaos. The semester was almost over and Ethan thought maybe life would calm down. He was wrong. Every morning, Adrian personally drove Ethan to campus in his sleek black Rolls-Royce, carrying his bag like a chauffeur/bodyguard/possessive husband. Students gawked. Is that Professor Vale? Carrying Ethan's books? Did he just fix his tie? Ethan hissed under his breath. You're ruining my reputation. People think I'm being pampered. Adrian smiled like the smug billionaire menace he was. Good. They should know how cherished you are. Ethan. You mean chained? Adrian. Chains look good on you. Ethan chokes. Shut up. Noah, Ethan's best friend, whispered loudly as he walked beside them. Congrats, Ethan. You've officially become a trophy husband. Ethan kicked him in the shin. The double proposal chaos. Graduation day came. Ethan, in his robes, walked across the stage proudly, clutching his diploma. Just when he thought it was over, Adrian stood up in front of the entire university, dropped to one knee, and pulled out a ring that probably cost more than the library. Gasps filled the hall. Students screamed, professors fainted. Adrian's voice echoed. "Ethan Cross, my alpha, my mate, my reason for everything. Will you marry me?" Ethan's jaw dropped. "You absolute menace!" The crowd chanted, "Say yes! Say yes!" Red-faced, Ethan finally muttered, "Fine, yes." The next day, Adrian escalated it. A full-blown press conference, cameras, reporters, entire world watching. "Professor Vale," a journalist shouted, "any comments on the scandal of being romantically involved with your student?" Adrian smirked. "Scandal? This company, this research, this empire. It was all built for him. Ethan Cross is my future, and I'll say this again for the entire world to hear. Ethan, will you marry me?" Ethan, standing beside him with his swollen belly visible under his designer suit, groaned into the mic. "Didn't we already do this yesterday?" The internet exploded. Headlines: Professor Vale proposes twice. World's most extra billionaire professor. Pregnant alpha Ethan Cross engaged to Enigma tycoon Adrian Vale. Noah: "Congratulations, you're trending worldwide. Again." Corporate mayhem. The Vale Biotech Board wasn't pleased. "Professor Vale, mixing personal life with corporate interests is risky," one director warned. Adrian leaned back, sharp smile in place. "This company exists because of him. Every decision, every success. It's his as much as mine. If you can't accept that, resign." Silence. Not one dared argue. Later, Ethan hissed, "You can't threaten your board like that." Adrian kissed his temple. "Watch me." Pregnancy chaos. Ethan's pregnancy journey was chaotic. He'd wake up at 3 a.m. demanding spicy ramen, then cry because it was too spicy. He threw a pillow at Adrian once, screaming, "I hate you, you did this to me," only to curl into Adrian 10 minutes later, whispering, "Don't leave." Adrian built him an entire private research wing in their mansion, calling it Ethan's nest. Ethan nearly cried, again, hormones, and shouted, "Stop making me soft." Noah became his official, emotional support human, and proudly declared himself godfather. "Don't worry, kid," Noah told Ethan's belly. "When you're born, I'll protect you from your insane parents." Ethan smirked. "Good luck with that." Marcus's last attack. Of course, Marcus couldn't let things go. He tried one last sabotage, leaking false data to discredit Ethan and Adrian's research. But this time, Ethan fought back. Side by side, he and Adrian traced the fraud, exposed Marcus in front of the board, and effectively destroyed his career. Adrian's smile was razor-sharp as he whispered in Marcus's ear on the way out, "Touch what's mine again, and I'll bury you." Ethan elbowed him. "Scary much?" Adrian kissed his knuckles. "Only for you, I'm soft." The wedding. It was a luxury wedding straight out of fairy tales. Chandeliers, velvet carpets, hundreds of guests, reporters swarming. As Ethan walked down the aisle, he muttered under his breath, "I should have run when I had the chance." Adrian leaned close, whispering back, "Too late, you're chained for life." Their vows were full of banter. Ethan: "I promise not to strangle you in your sleep." Adrian: "And I promise to worship you even when you're yelling at me." The crowd laughed, but when they kissed, it was pure love. The birth. Months later, Ethan went into labor. It was hard, painful enough that Adrian nearly lost his mind watching him suffer. "Never again," Adrian swore, holding Ethan's hand. "No second child. I can't see you in pain like this again." Through gritted teeth, Ethan snapped, "Good, because one is enough." Finally, their baby cried. A healthy little boy. Ethan collapsed in relief, tears streaming, as Adrian kissed both his husband and newborn, whispering, "My family, my everything." Daily married life. Married life with a baby was both comedy and chaos. Adrian tried to ban anyone from holding the baby for more than 5 minutes. Ethan rolled his eyes but secretly loved how protective Adrian was. Noah spoiled his godson rotten, sneaking him candy when Ethan wasn't looking. Adrian would rush out of board meetings because Ethan texted, "Baby just burped. Come home now." Ethan, despite being Tsundere, admitted once, quietly, while their baby slept between them, "I'm happy, annoyed, but happy." Adrian kissed his hair. "That's all I need." Their happy ending. From the university halls where it began, to corporate empires and wedding vows, to baby chaos and laughter-filled nights, the Enigma professor and his menace Alpha lived their chaotic, luxurious, sarcastic, love-filled life. Together, always.